this is Rick Prokop at Piano Power Lessons. Today we're going to be looking at this idea that your fingers don't lift when you're playing at fast speeds, that they don't lift off the keys. So some very accomplished pianists would claim that when they do something like this, that their fingers aren't lifting off the keys, that the fingers are just going down. So there's an easy way to prove that this isn't the case, and that is to simply keep all of your fingertips in contact with the keys, with the surface of the keys, and make an attempt to do this. And this is the best I can do. So clearly, even if I use what is referred to in the business as rotation, by the way, this is called supination and this is called pronation, and they're lumped together as rotation. So even if I do something like that, you could argue, yeah, well, you're not taking your fingers off the keys, and the keys are going down, but you don't play this way. And it's impractical at faster speeds because you don't have time to do big motions like rotation when you're doing something like, say, this. I don't have time to do this, and then over here to swing over to here with my wrist. I just don't have the time. So going slowly, yes, I could do this. I could swing over here. All right, and then there's very little finger motion. And I can keep my fingers on the surface of the keys, but it's really going at a faster speed, it just becomes a moot point. So let's look at another grouping of notes. For instance, if we play an E scale, and we play that really fast, we go through this group, and then we go through this group of 4 notes. So let's see how cleanly I can play the first 3 notes of that group without lifting my fingertips off the keys. All right, here we go. And that's the best I can do. And there's certainly, it's not a clean attack that's happening here, as opposed to, okay, let's look at this group now. This is the best I can do. But I want this, which requires that the fingers come off the keys, even if it's really minimal, even if it's 1/100th of an inch. All right, let's try something with my hand spread out a bit. So I'm spanning a 9th here, and I want to play through D, G, B, and E without taking my fingers off the keys. And again, this is the best I can do. Now, if I'm playing whole notes, I can just push my wrist forward and transfer the weight of my hand onto those individual keys. But if I want to do something that's precisely articulated, each of those fingers have to come off the surface of the key before they play. In other words, before they go down. There has to be an up motion and followed by a down motion. Let's take an example just using the inner fingers. Now, if I try to do this without lifting the fingers, I might argue, well, you can rotate your wrist in a certain way. So I could supinate to get to here, then I pronate to get to here, then supinate to get to here, then pronate to get to here, etc., etc. But again, all right, this is fine if you're not going to play any faster than this, and it does nothing to strengthen your fingers so that you eventually can do this. So it's a moot point. So we could make a general statement that at any speed, perhaps faster than this, the finger has to fire. Each finger has to fire, meaning it has to go up, down, up. And in piano power, that's what I refer to as the firing of the finger. It's a hammer action. And I refer to a hammer action because pretend this is a hammer. If you're hammering something in, you always come back and then go down. You always come back. If you're throwing a ball, say that way, you always come back first with the wrist and the fingers and throw it that way. So it's a way of building a little momentum. So if you come back, you can build a little momentum then going forward. And it's the same thing with the piano. So the firing of the finger requires 3 things to happen. So if you look at my pinky, to play that note, it does 3 things. It goes up, down, up. And if I'm playing, let's see if I put the metronome on 60. I'm sorry. If I put the metronome on 60 and I play 8 notes a second, each of these fingers are going up, down, up in 1/8 of a second. So in effect, they're all playing staccato. So if we look at the pinky, if we look at the second finger, the fourth finger, it's playing 2 staccatos, right? And if it's slower, it's just a slower staccato, right? If staccato is defined as half, you play a staccato 8th note, it's half that, which is a 16th note. If you play a staccato quarter note, it's really an 8th note, okay? So with that in mind, each finger is playing staccato. Now watch the third finger. Faster. So now the question becomes, what's going on physically? What's going on with your muscles as you do this? And the real question is, what's harder to do? Is it harder to lift your finger back, which is called extension, or is it harder to flex your fingers into a fist? So this is flexion coming down. It's the closing of the hand, as opposed to extension, which is the opening of the hand. So which is harder to do? Well, of course, it's extension. And our flexors are very powerful. They're very fast. They're very powerful. Our hand is meant to grab things tightly, quickly, okay? Occasionally, say we have to pick a big grapefruit off of a tree, we have to extend our hand and grab that grapefruit and pull it off the tree. But the point is, this is uncomfortable. To walk around like this is uncomfortable. And it's because it's extension. And the hand is really meant to do this. The problem is when you're playing the piano, the hand's doing this all the time. It's extending all the time, especially if you have very small hands or a hand that can just span an octave or barely span an octave. Your hand is in stress almost all of the time. That is as you're playing a piece. Yes, when you're working something out really slowly, like this, we can avoid that. But when you're playing there and you're practicing for hours and playing octaves, your hand is in stress most of the time. So since the flexors are more powerful than the extensors, and the extensors, every time we play a note, are doing two things, and the flexors are just doing one thing, it would make sense that we have to strengthen the extensor muscles. So the slow extension exercise that I posted will help you with this, just doing stuff like this. And you always have to do it in strict metronomic time, okay? Because if you're not doing that, you can just do this whenever you want. You can just bring this down anyway, any time that you want, and you're not stressing your fingers. The stress to your fingers occurs when you're playing in time, when you have to play at a certain specific point in time. Well, I hope that was helpful for you in getting you to understand how the fingers play when we're playing at medium and faster tempos. This is a controversial subject, and there'll be more controversial subjects that we'll be discussing in the future. So in the meantime, I hope you have a great day and hope to see you next time. Take care.